The beast turns its gaze towards your character, Dave. Its intent is clear, and you are next in line for its attack.
Whatever, Ted. I'm a raging Hillsdale barbarian with a 20 con and the toughie. I've got over 230 hit points.
Cool. What was your intelligence?
Was?
Yeah, we might need to talk about D&D hit points for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Does your character have enough?
Welcome to Nerdarchy for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Compel those D&D videos into your YouTube feed by hitting that subscribe button.
And if you never want to miss another Nerdarchy video, you're going to have to ring that notification bell.
You know, Ted, no matter how many hit points your character wants, you're still going to want a cool mini.
Indeed. And you know who's got some cool minis?
Ted, who's got cool minis?
That's going to be Hero Forge, because they've got the mini that you can customize yourself.
That's true. Hero Forge is sponsored this video because they want us to let you know they are redesigning their website. I mean, it's already fantastic. It's already great, but they want an even better new user interface with tons of improvements and better graphics all around. They're going to be also releasing their color minis to the public. You're going to get better camera controls, the token maker, and photo booth features also coming out. So you're going to want to check that out.
They had the Kickstarter a while back to get the early access to their color tools. I've had access for a while because I totally backed the Kickstarter. I've been, in love with Hero Forge since pretty much I found them. My entire family loves playing on, the character creation tools and making characters. And, before too long, those characters wind up showing up at my house. I've been a fan. I've got a handful of the color minis here, and they look absolutely fabulous. You have to check out Hero Forge. If you're into minis, they're awesome. Check it out.
Yeah, there's going to be a link in the description. Go check them out. So let's jump into our video, and let's talk about D&D hit points and the fact that you just don't have enough. I mean, how can we say you don't have enough hit points when we don't even know how many hit points you have?
Well, that's because while this is the staple, the standard, if you will, for knocking your character out, there are going to be other things within the game where hit points are not part of the equation. Like, alright, you've got 230 hit points as that, Raging Hill Dwarf Barbarian. That pretty much makes you immune to the sleep spell. But that's not the only way to put your character out of commission.
That's true, Ted. I mean, why or when don't you have enough hit points?
When we're not choosing to attack your hit points. There are things in the game that do ability damage or cause conditions that don't register to your hit points in any way, shape, or form. And,
one of those conditions to call out specifically always is exhaustion because how brutal it can be in the game.
Absolutely. I mean, six levels of exhaustion is you're dead. That's it. Like, 6. So, like, if you've got a monster that's got the ability to cause exhaustion or, effects going on in your game that are causing that, doesn't matter how tough you are, doesn't matter how many hit points you've got. You go to 5, you're not moving anymore, and if you somehow have the ability to gain another one, your character expires. You literally got so exhausted, you died.
Yeah, so essentially, what can actually cause these effects in the game? I mean, you mentioned spells and monsters. I feel like there's probably some hazards and conditions as well that can do it. If you suffer from heat exhaustion or hypothermia, these would be some things that attack things that aren't your hit points. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I'm sure there are probably hazards that are going to do damage or hurt you in ways that have nothing to do with your hit points. Maybe like your feelings or something too.
It'll hurt your feelings. Oh my god. How many levels of my feelings did it hurt?
All of the levels of your feelings. But it gets worse than that because, how do we fix these things when they go wrong? When we get damaged in ways that have nothing to do with our hit points, what is the fix?
Well, I mean, exhaustion is only a long rest, and that gets rid of a single level. So if you've got 5 levels of exhaustion, you have to rest for 5 days to make that go away.
There are some effects you can make go away with the Paladin's Lay on Hands or Lesser Restoration, but many of the most severe effects actually require greater restoration, a 5th level spell that you have to be a 9th level caster in order to enact. And
that 100 gold piece diamond, that goes away with every casting.
So it can get brutal real quick, right? So now let's dive into it, right? And we're going to look at some monsters that can hurt you in ways that just don't involve your hit points. There are 5-ish monsters, I'm going to say, that attack your ability scores. I say ish because there's almost like a classification of monster they're all kind of the same. So kicking it off, attacking our intelligence is a very low challenge monster. It's only a 2. It's Intellect Devourer. But not only does it have the ability to attack your intelligence, it also has the ability to kind of kill you outright if you are stunned by something else or incapacitated.
As sad of a story this is, I actually was recently talking to a fellow gamer who was playing in an adventure, fairly low-level characters. They were up against, characters that are monsters that had been taken over by Intellect Devourers. The thing came in, knocked him out, ate his brain, totally killed him. He then got to RP a session as the Intellect Devourer, attacking other people until his character was legitimately dead. Comes in with a new character, but they're still dealing with the threat. So he winds up, having another fight against another Intellect Devourer and dies again. 3 sessions, 2 character deaths, all because of Intellect Devourers.
And not only that, not only can these weak-ass monsters burrow into someone's head and basically become that creature, then after you kill the creature, they're not dead. They just need a new ride, right? They need someone new to robot. So that is one creature that will attack your intelligence. Another one is Durin, which is a Valkyr, which are basically think demon lords, but aberrations from Eberron. This is super powerful. It's a 24 challenge, but it has the ability to vomit Intellect Devourers.
We are talking about the opposite sides of the spectrum. The Intellect Devourers being near the low end of the totem pole. A challenge 24 that is final boss level monsters. But even still, if it's vomiting up Intellect Devourers that are able to drain the intelligence, that is going to make that particular monster that much more devastating, because the little minions still aren't attacking hit points. They've got the ability to attack your intelligence. So if you're not going in there, fully loaded to bear on brains, you might just be losing yours.
That's not all, Ted. As part of their lair actions, it attacks your intelligence as well, and it's also a monster that has stunning abilities. And stun combined with Intellect Devourer is no Gwyneth. It is completely bad. It is horrible for the players for sure.
Indeed.
Next up, we're going to attack your charisma. That's right. You're not so pretty no more. With I'm probably going to butcher this. It is a type of fiend, Maruzi. It's a CR7, so challenge 7 is a little bit tougher. But again, once this thing kills you by eating your face, basically your charisma, it then brings you back as a ghoul under its control. So yeah,
because why not? I believe Doug called it a Marizi, but yeah, it's pretty nasty, and I know there's a lot of players out there that they're not the talky types, so charisma is a pretty common dump stat. So when you've got that makes it bad news for those players, and that's only just one option. Next up is, another, popular dump stat, because unless you're playing that frontline fighter swinging that greatsword, do I really need strength? And that's a whole classification of shadow and, the shadow duplicates and the shadow assassin. So these creatures are going to drain that strength score. That's possibly got the ability to, affect your frontline fighters' capabilities in combat, as well as, those characters who are not, pretty pumpty. Very quickly, they're going to find themselves, husks because they can't move anymore.
Yes, and coming back as Shadow. And the Shadow and Shadowy Duplicate are only CR halves. The Shadowy Duplicate is a construct version of the Shadow, basically. You have a Shadow Assassin, which is a challenge 9, which are pretty brutal. And then you have a Falaskia, which you can find in Mythic Odysseys of Pharaoh. Theros is another type of undead, which is also a CR9. That Shadow Assassin is basically just a beefed up Shadow. But these whole classification of monsters are just brutal, and they will utterly annihilate your party. I mean, one of the few fights that I ever made, the first 5e campaign party run away from was a tomb full of shadows. And they were high enough level where they were decimating things with blade barrier and doing all kinds of uber damage.
Yep.
I think it was 2 or 3 shadow encounters back to back, not even a lot of them. And they went running and screaming like little girls.
I had no problems picking up my robes and bolting out of there because my character totally dumped strength. And it was, as Dave said, it was no joke. And I knew enough to know that this could be bad. And this, better part of valor, as the expression goes.
Yeah. Hey, there's a whole nother area that we can talk about that doesn't attack hit points and kind of goes along the same vein.
Is that, going by the dreaded phrase, by 5 or more?
Fails by 5 or more. There's about 7 monsters I found that if you fail your saving throw versus what they do, something bad happens. There's actually an 8th monster I didn't leave out because it attacks your hit points. The Cataplepus just does max damage, right? But then you have the Medusa, challenge 6. You fail by 5, you're petrified. You're basically essentially dead until someone unpetrifies you.
No, that's crazy. Now, like, I know we can't control the by 5 or more, but it is still things where, like, these kind of effects can come up, and, if you begin playing with a situation where, the combination of disadvantage on effects, coupled with these kind of things become, super nasty when you stitch these little things together, and whether it be because of a condition the character is already under, the terrain that they're currently in, they're plagued by something else that is leading up to, you can stage things to make something that's should be a less powerful fight that much more challenging because you've set the scene.
There are 2 bars that can make you minus a die to your saving throw roll. So that in itself could definitely affect that as well. Next up, we have a little bit more powerful monster, Akolith, which is basically fiendish portal moss, right? If you fail by 5 or more, you're under the confusion spell. It's a CR11, and the reason why this is really bad, typically those characters with those super high hit points are kind of our frontline fighters, right? So a confused frontline fighter could be very bad because now they're attacking you, the party, instead of the enemy. And this stuff looks like moss, but it's fiendish. And if it hangs out around a portal long enough, a doorway or window, it actually creates a portal to the abyss. So I didn't know about this monster, but I need to use it now. And there needs to be portals to the abyss popping up, guarded by fiendish portal monsters known as the Akolith.
Well, beyond the fact of the frontline fighters attacking the party, like that's dangerous in and of itself. But when we look at, the typical party composition, those fighters, those people who are typically going to be on the front lines, we need them on those front lines. We've built party tactics around that. Well, even if you're under the confusion spell and not attacking, the closest thing towards you, you could just wander away. You could just stand there and do nothing. If you wander away, you're not currently attacking the thing that's trying to kill you all, and therefore you are not fulfilling your party role.
Did we mention these are frequently found around portals to the abyss? You could wander into the abyss.
That is entirely true.
Our next monster is actually a favorite of Nerdarchies because we're big Dark Sun fans. And they've just look really cool. They're thematic. It's a low CR. It's just a Thri-Kreen, but they have a bite that paralyzes. And if you fail by 5 or more, you're under the paralyzed effect, which is brutal because they get other attacks. Those attacks will now be crits when they hit you. So it's just a compounding problem.
And the fact that they're a low challenge rating, means that there's times where you're going to put this up against a first level party, and if one jumps out, gets the surprise, paralyzes on that first attack, that character's dead. Like that, you are probably going to do enough damage, or the subsequent attacks just take them down. So yeah, it can be brutal, and if you are a deadly DM, looking for blood, Thri-Kreen might be a good way to start things off bad.
Yeah, I mean, the scenario you described is basically a tear up your character sheet scenario. If the Thri-Kreen actually got 2 rounds of attack on a paralyzed first level character, they're done. Even a second level character might just be done outright. Next up, we're looking at a group of monsters that all have the ability to give you the unconscious condition. They're all through poisons, and there's one monster is a challenge 0, and 2 of them are quarter CRs. So again, really low level monsters. The Homunculus is one of them. It bites you, makes you go unconscious. Pseudo-dragons sting you. Drow use poison. So any one of these could just take you out of the fight with one attack.
The next category is might not be dangerous for some races, I should say. But if you're a short-lived race, there are a number of monsters that can age you. And some of the effects can actually take you to beyond your race's, maximum age range. And that could just kill you as well.
Yeah, so you have the Ghost, right? And there's probably some other Ghost variants throughout the game as well. If you fail by 5 or more, if you fail, you're going to be frightened. 5 or more, you're frightened, but you also die 4 times 10 years. Right. Most races, it's not as big a deal, but this is also a permanent effect and could affect your character, right? Or if you have a series of bad rolls, then it could affect anybody. Orc and Turtle, they only live 50 years, right? Depending which orc you're using. Mm-hmm. And then the Aarakocra, we were kind of surprised to see this one, but this is really bad. They only live 30 years, right? So you have a 50% chance of just dropping dead of old age during a fight with a ghost.
Yeah. So if you're an Aarakocra and you see a ghost, it's best to just beat feet, flap them wings, and get out of Dodge City. You don't want to be there anymore.
The gods gave you wings for a reason. Use them now.
Stats aren't the only way to threaten your players. Check out crazy broken 5e combos over here.
Kill anything in 30 seconds. Before we head out, let me take a moment to invite you to join our adventuring party over on Patreon. What can they expect over on Patreon, Ted?
We're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons every month for players and DMs alike. We do weekly live chats with our patrons. We do monthly giveaways that our patrons are automatically entered, and more.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.